Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Brian Fonseca and J Money. J Money is Money on Twitter and YouTube and in the Action Network app. This is your Tuesday Best Bets episode for January 9th in the National Basketball Association. We'll break down what you need to know, how you need to bet it. We've got plays on 3 different games tonight. We'll get those loaded up for you on the show. Reminder, download the Action Network app. Check it out. Just if you heard this and you don't have the app, download it, mess around with it for 2 days and see if you don't get anything out of it. If you literally don't find anything of interest, whether it's tracking numbers, whether it's setting up line alerts, which you can do, whether it's seeing where the bets and money are coming in on, whether it's finding bets from Brandon Anderson like Texans to win the goddamn division. Even for Brandon Anderson, his futures hits this year were fucking absurd. So you can check all those out in the Action Network app. Also check out our YouTube page. Go to youtube.com/the Action Network. You can catch all sorts of stuff like our live shows, including one you can attend in person if you're in the New York area. If you live within range of Jersey, you want to check out the Shepherd and the Knuckle. Details on the favorites page. The favorites is having live shows this weekend for Wildcard Weekend. You want to go check those out. It's going to be a blast. Simon Hunter, Chad Millman, Stuckey will be there. Raybon will be there. You'll have all sorts of folks in there sweating the NBA, NFL wildcard games. You'll have a great time. Check out the details over with the favorites podcast. All right, no more fucking around, boys. Let's get to it. J Money, what's your best bet for Tuesday?
I'm on the Minnesota Timberwolves -4.5.
Wolves -4.5 at the Magic. Total in that game's 218.5. Brian Fonseca, what's your best bet for Tuesday?
I like the under for the Sacramento Kings versus Detroit Pistons under 241.5.
Okay, I'm going to be with Brian on that bet. I'm going to tail him on that. I'm going to take the New York Knicks -11.5 versus the Portland Trailblazers at home. That'll be mine for the weekend. Let's start with the Timberwolves game. So, Jay, I mean, look, I'll just tell you, I can't here. Wolves, and I actually might talk myself into being on the other side, especially if the Wolves take steam and this goes up. Right now, they're taking money on the money line. That's taken on and on the spread. The Wolves are taking money, so you are on the side that you want to be on. Ticket percentage right now, rather, is on the Wolves, so they're the public side right now, -4.5 via our systems over at Action Labs. Look, I just got done watching the Wolves versus the Mavericks, and there's a lot of stuff I have to say about where the Wolves are at, as well as where the Magic are at. But give me the cap on this. You like the Wolves laying the wood on the road versus Orlando?
Yeah, I like the Wolves in this particular spot. In the bounce back J spot, obviously coming off a loss, they coming off a game where they shouldn't have lost versus the Dallas Mavs. They had like a 5-point lead late in that one, and then just totally let go of the ropes. This team has been really good at bouncing back off of losses so far this year. I believe it's only one time that they've lost back-to-back losses. This is a top-tier defensive team. They have plenty of size down low. They have a MVP caliber player in Anthony Edwards. They have a shutdown stopper, defensive stopper in Jaden McDaniels as well. So I love this Wolves team. I know that they're on a bit of a slide right now, only 2-8 against the spread in the last 10. They're on the front end of a back-to-back versus the Boston Celtics. They're going to lose that game. So if they want to try to go 2-2 on this road trip, you got to win this game versus Orlando. So I just see this as a bounce back spot. Also see as a letdown spot for the Magic as well. They came back home off of a 4-game West Coast road trip and luckily faced the Atlanta Hawks. They probably should have lost that game, end up going to overtime. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but most of these teams have been going into overtimes this year. It's really been a bad spot in the next game. So Magic have injuries. They got sickness going around in the team. I just feel like this is a bad spot for the Orlando Magic in this particular game. They started out really hot so far this year, but you could kind of see them kind of coming back down to earth. And this is one of those type of games where they come back down to earth versus a top tier Western Conference team. I'll back the Minnesota Timberwolves here -4.5 with confidence.
So just look this up. Teams off of overtime this season are 45% ATS, so you would be across the margin for coverage there. Home teams, it looks like they are 45.8, and home dogs coming off of an overtime game. Woof! Okay, you got me there. 3-4 this season ATS. So I'm not going to talk you off of it. I've been doing this with you long enough, Jay, to know I'm not going to talk you off of it, but I got to try. So here's the problem. Okay. Magic are banged up for sure. They might get some of these guys back because they had a sickness rolling through. So they're going to get guys like Anthony Black back. They might get a few other dudes back depending on where the injury stuff is at. The Magic are tough. They're obviously tough at home. They're a tough defensive team. This is going to be an absolute, like, it's going to be a rock fight. The other thing is that I watched that Mavericks game today in detail. I have some Minnesota concerns. Now we're going to cruise to our over on their win total, which we gave out in preseason. Thankfully, I'm a big Wolves backer. I believe in this team. There's when you say that they're 2-8 ATS in their last 10, that tracks. Because when I watch them, there's a lot of stuff I'm picking up that is kind of concerning. There's stuff I've heard going around the league about like where they're at from a chemistry perspective. I've written a little bit about that. Last 2 weeks, they are 19th in offense, but more concerningly, they are 14th in defense, and they are 22nd in spread differential per clean the glass. That's minus 5.3 ATS in the last 2 weeks. That's concerning. When I watched them, there was a whole bunch of finger pointing and barking at one another. Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns were yelling at one another. There was miscommunication with Gobert and Anthony Edwards. There was miscommunication with Jaden McDaniels and the bigs. Like, that team is not on the same page right now. And they're on, this is a road trip, hit Dallas. Now they're in Orlando, going to the East Coast. I think the spot is at least alarming just from the standpoint of the Magic are playing with so much, for lack of a better term, like vibe. Like Jalen Suggs is a fucking monster right now, right? And he's going to be a pest on Mike Conley, and he's going to be a pest on Anthony Edwards, and he's going to make some crazy threes because he's been shooting pretty well. I understand the bounce back spot here, but just from a power ratings perspective, I can't get there. I've got Magic favored, so I can't get there. I may wind up playing the other side. I had to give the other one. Does any of this scare you at all, my man?
I'll say this: put Jalen Suggs on Anthony Edwards and see what happens. I mean,
Yeah,
what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I mean, shutting down Michael Conley is one thing, but the Magic are a great team. I love what they're doing, but they're still over their head at 21-15 on the season. They're going up against a top tier team that's pissed off. I understand that they're. I mean, you're supposed to be pissed after losing that game in Dallas. They were supposed to win that game, right? So I don't mind them being a little pissed off. I actually like backing pissed off teams in this one. I think this spread is going up for a reason here. So nothing really scares me off here. The Magic could have everyone back here, and I wouldn't care. So I like the Timberwolves by double digits in this game.
Brian, what do you think?
A little worried about the health of the Orlando Magic. Franz Wagner in particular, because I don't know what that's going to be for their offense in general. And this is probably one that I'm going to stay away from because this sucks because I'm going to land in between. But I can see it going either way. And for me, I do have some concerns about Minnesota, but I don't think that has to impact how I feel about them in this particular game because I could see them winning and covering.
That's funny because I'm the opposite. Where I'm like, no, like long term they're gonna be fine. I just don't like them right now. It's funny that what are you saying?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much I trust that team yet. Like once we get to like April, May, whatever. But that doesn't matter as of right now. For right now, I think it's fine. I am worried about just in the short term, Orlando health wise, and Franz Wagner, what that's going to be because they're being vague enough about his injury to where it could linger a little bit longer than I think people expect. And I wonder how that's going to impact that team because Franz has been very good this year and very steady.
He's their best player by far, in my opinion.
Wolves, after a loss this season, are 8-1 straight up, 5-4 ATS. They have failed to cover in 3 of 4 after a loss, but their margin is just as important here. They have a ATS margin after a loss of plus 6.3, which is really good. So that's Jay. He's on the Wolves minus 4.5. Brian, so you want the under in Kings Pistons. I wonder what the cap's going to be on this one. Lay it on me.
Yeah, Cade Cunningham is out, and that's really where this starts and ends. I believe this is the first game he's going to miss this season. And Cade Cunningham, for people who haven't been tracking, has the 14th highest usage in the NBA. Now, I don't know how Detroit is going to make up that offense. I don't know how they're going to really score at all at a high rate. They're surprisingly going over in a lot of games as a home underdog, which was surprising to me. But again, I think that's largely driven by Cade Cunningham. The second highest usage guy on the team is Jaden Ivey. He's at 22. I like Jaden Ivey, but if you're going to run offense through him for an entire game, I don't know what that's going to look like, even against Sacramento Kings. Beyond that, you're looking at Asar Thompson and Killian Hayes, and also Isaiah Stewart, who's still injured. So I just don't know where the offense is going to come from for me to get to where, okay, they're going to meet the Kings and go over 241 and a half. Like, that was a little strange to me. The Kings also, and this is probably more relevant because they're not missing one of their best guys, and like how the Detroit Pistons are missing Cade Cunningham. The Kings, as a road favorite, have gone under 5 of 9 times this season. And I think that they'll probably put up the points because these are the Pistons after all. But I think, without Cade Cunningham, which is pretty alarming to me as to how Detroit could muster up enough offense, I think this is going under because I don't know how they're going to put a consistent amount of points on the board without their engine being there.
I project this under anyway. I mean, that's before the Cade injury. The spot's also great here too. You mentioned them as a road favorite. Just the Kings overall, 10-5 ATS, or 10-5 to the under in road games this season, and we're seeing the same trend from last year. And this trend is fucking bonkers. Okay, so the Kings have a shit defense, right? Like, that's pretty well known. Like, the Kings have a shit defense. Okay, so last season, I was trying to figure out why, like, what their win-loss record kind of looked like, right? And I was trying to dig in all these types of things. And I found something really weird. And I mentioned it on Buckets a couple of times, but if you're new to the show, the Kings had the second best defense on the road last season and were 29th at home. That's crazy. That's wild, okay? And that's just like a crazy ass, like, where does that come from? That can't possibly have any meaning. Check this out. Just look this up. This season, at home, 27th in defensive rating at home. Okay, but we know that the defense sucks. What's it on the road, you might ask? They're 9th. They have the 9th best defense amongst all teams on the road this season. So, for whatever reason, the Kings play much better defense on the road. So that combined with the Cade angle on this, I'm with you. Cade was playing great. He was playing, like, his shooting was up. He was playing very smooth. This team is turnover prone. I just saw him in Denver. Killian Hayes trying to run that second unit was a disaster. The Kings are going to score repeatedly, so that's going to be the danger here, is that Kings may put up a big number that hurts you on this. But that also is going to make it harder for Detroit because they're just going to be going against a set defense, and that'll be a little bit tougher for them. So, I will tail you on this and take the under on Kings and Pistons at a number of 241.5. Do you have a breaking point for this? Is there a number you don't want it
at? Because of, what if the Kings actually put up 135 or whatever, and Detroit, like, yes, they might not get a lot of offense, but could they get over 100? It'll scare me if we get to, like, I don't know, maybe 240.
You want it? I guess the question here is, do you want it sub 240?
Yeah, that's probably it.
The reason I ask is the consensus open on this game was 243.5, and we're already at 241.5. It's moved a point and a half. So if you're listening to this on Tuesday morning and this has gone below 240, just be advised that Brian doesn't like it nearly as much. That you've already lost now 4 points of steam, 3.5. That might be too much steam for you to lose on this one. Jay, you got thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Cade being out is going to be huge. This Pistons team, they are a scrappy team. I don't know what to do with this guy. I mean, obviously, I don't really look at a ton of totals. I just like to look at it from the sides. But I just want to give some credit to Kevin Knox, man. I was kind of like way off of him, and he's actually been balling for the Detroit Pistons. So I'm not sure what they're going to do like for the second unit, but I do like what I'm seeing from Kevin Knox. Aside of the fact that the Kings are coming off a major bounce back game after getting slaughtered by the Pelicans, one thing I've noticed, this Kings team isn't the same as last year. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that De'Aaron Fox kind of like he chose not to sign like an extension or something like that for the Kings, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that might be starting to mess with them. But something I've noticed, this Kings team is not that same team that made it to the playoffs last year for whatever reason, whether it's at the house or on the road. I still, even without Cade Cunningham and off of a bad loss, I still don't trust him laying 11 and a half on the road.
All right, I'm going to take the New York Knicks minus 11.5. I'm laying the wood versus the Portland Trailblazers in this one. I've got an edge on the number in this, where I've got it about 12.5. It's a full point. There's also a trend that I like in this spot, which is this is a weird one. Teams, if you are playing, I did this one a lot last year, where if you played the Thunder, the next game you were kind of trash. And this season, guess who that team has been? It's been the Brooklyn Nets have been one of those teams that if you play the Brooklyn Nets, your winning percentage and cover percentage is absolutely in the toilet. So that's been an angle on this one. So that gives me a solid angle to go ahead and take this. Also, look, the Knicks I just think are probably underrated in the market because like OG, I do think is actually legitimately changed things up for them. I think that has legitimately shifted things. Opponents this season in the game after playing the Brooklyn Nets, 12-23 ATS for 34%. Like, I am totally open to you saying like, yeah, but what's the logic in this? And my response would be, I think it's probably that there's a certain way that teams play, and the Nets cover so much ground because they move the ball side to side, constantly shooting threes and offensive rebounding. It's pretty exhausting. They're a pain in the ass to play. But we see this trend consistently that there are certain teams that the game after, I mean, we're talking about 34% here. We're not talking about like a tight margin. This is 12-23, 34%. And we have like the Thunder have been in their top 5 in this category. They've been top 5 consistently. All of this to me, the Blazers are a team that can definitely jump up and bite you. I think the Knicks are rolling right now. They're in a really good place. I'm going to ride that. I'm going to lay 11.5 with the Knicks. Jay, am I laying too much?
I don't think so. I mean, the Blazers are obviously coming off a big win.
Yep.
The Knicks have been balling. I mean, ever since they got OG with 4-0 straight up and against the spread. So this team is a wagon right now. They beat up on bad teams. I don't necessarily like the spot for them. I hate backing a team that's coming off of a little mini road trip, come home for one game, and then they head back out on the road. That game is essentially another road game. So it's not something that I really like to. But just as far as the two teams matching up, the Blazers coming off that overtime game, a huge win versus the Brooklyn Nets. The Knicks are a wagon right now. I'm not fading them, so I can't talk you off, man.
Portland also with the New York nightlife game. They've been hanging out in New York for a couple of days, so we'll see if that has an impact as well. Brian, as a New Yorker, you got thoughts on the single?
I mean, it'll be fun to watch Duop Reith and Scoot
Yeah.
Henderson. For fantasy basketball players out there, those are two guys to really watch out for. But I mean, I don't. Other than that, I mean, I can't talk you off this either. I don't. It was a couple more points than I probably was ready for. But I can totally see why, because it feels like a letdown spot for the Blazers after that win.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the Knicks, they've just been so crisp defensively lately. And prop wise, I've been looking at Isaiah Hartenstein a lot lately. So he's somebody I'd probably look at again in this matchup. He's been coming through even on the assists. I had him over 2.5 assists. I'm forgetting which game it was a couple games ago. And that was at plus 160. He finished with 5. So he's somebody who can also fill up the stat sheet. So if you're looking at props, Isaiah Hartenstein is somebody who you can continue to sort of monitor, especially for this game, where I think this is a good spot for the Knicks to do what they've been doing since they got OG Anunoby.
Before we get out of here, Raptors are taking on the Lakers. Raptors have been on this West Coast road trip for a while. They've just absolutely smacked the Warriors in the night. I mean, I rewatched that one today, and that was a fucking beatdown. It's Lakers are favored by 5 here. Jay, Lakers coming off of the get right, not miracle, but like really big win versus the Clippers. I'm curious as to what you think about the spot here. Like, which team is in the good spot in Lakers Raptors with Lakers favored by 5?
Well, the Lakers would have to be in a good spot. This is their 4th straight home game of a 6-game homestand as well. So, and the Raptors are exact opposite. I mean, they're on their 4th. So this is their 7th road game in their last 8 games. They've been traveling all over the place. This will be their 10th straight game in a new arena as well. And they're not in their comfortable time zone as well. They're on the West Coast. Got a couple more road games after this as well. Face the Clippers and the Jazz. First game of a back-to-back versus the First, they face the Clippers the next night as well. So while the Lakers aren't in better form, the Raptors are actually in better form. I'd actually lean towards the Lakers here. I just feel like the spot sets up better for them.
Brian, what do you think about that matchup?
I agree, even though betting the Lakers has always scared me this season for reasons that y'all could understand. But I like the spot more for them. I mean, the Raptors are like, they're a team I'm still trying to read because obviously, you know, with the infusion of RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly, you're still trying to get a feel for what they are. And the Lakers are a team that I'm taking into account them moving forward. They're just a desperate team right now. And I think this is a team that's leaning towards a shakeup, not obviously to blow it up or anything like that, but you know, as we're getting toward the trade deadline, which is probably the thing that I care most about at this part of the season, we're a month away, and I think the Lakers are trending towards like, you know, the changes are coming, and there's going to be a lot of just urgency in that building. So I'm weighing that as well for like these performances where I'm expecting just a lot of effort, particularly from their stars, LeBron and Anthony Davis, who've been good and healthy for most of this year. Don't know how long that's going to continue, but for their sake, ideally a long time. I just think that while they've generally been worrisome for me, I like them in this spot because I like their sense of urgency lately, which we saw actually in their last win against the Clippers. Like they knew they needed that one, especially after blowing a couple games before that. So
All right, it's got to do it for Buckets for Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. You can catch Jay Money on Twitter at JMoneyIsMoney, as well as on YouTube. Make sure to check out his YouTube show with daily picks. You can catch Brian Fonseca all over the Action Network app, all over. He does a lot. Brian hustles like I used to once back in the day. I too hustled before I got lazy. You can catch Brian on Twitter and the Action Network app as well. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, as well as Hutton Jackson and the crew for putting this up on YouTube.com. We'll see you guys again tomorrow with best bets from Jay, AC, and Sean. Till then, let's get buckets.